Hi everyone, welcome to this channel, the Another Hermit channel, and I hope you will like this tag because I have watched I think every single video that was made based on this tag, and I really liked them all. And I remember back then when I was watching it, because it's a pretty old tag, it's like 2 years old now, I was thinking myself what decks I would put on my list. This is my current version of this tag. Probably if I make this video next year, it will be different. But anyway, it is what it is. So the first prompt is Pride, a deck I purchased or I use for flexing. Well, I don't really buy decks for flexing. I just buy decks that I like, and not all of my decks they ever make to social media. Some of them stay for some time in my collection and leave unnoticeable, including some expensive ones as well. So this wasn't flexing, but I definitely was intrigued by this deck. I'm talking about the True Black Tarot, because for the time when it appeared, it had a pretty unique concept. And first of all, it was the concept of the way it looks, because of the way it was produced, because it was a unique deck for the time. And oh, I actually have it in order because I was doing some comparison job with this deck. First of all, I was intrigued by the way how this deck will be produced, and I pre-ordered it on the last day when the pre-orders were accepted at the end of 2019. I think it was November. And as soon as this deck arrived, a lot of people, they started to, post this wow reviews about the deck, that something that they have never touched like this. And of course, the concept of the images as well was very intriguing, because all these figures as if they are hanging in the air, and they look in a way very similar to each other. It's like they are these humans that are living in some parallel universe or whatever it is, and they all have this ability to hover in the air, which gives them this otherworldly feeling. But actually it turned out that this deck is pretty okay for mundane readings, as well as more philosophical readings, I would say. So that was probably the deck that I purchased, out of curiosity, and curiosity to try something unique and luxurious in a way, because at the time it was the most expensive deck that I ever afforded so far. Yeah, later on I bought other decks that were more expensive than this one, but for the time it was something extremely unique, and I was intrigued by everything related to the production and the imagery of this deck. So yeah, I guess this will be the True Black. Second prompt, Greed, a deck you don't share with anyone else and you use it only for yourself. Well, I don't have the deck that I specifically assigned to myself and that I don't want to share with anyone, but there is only one deck so far that I haven't read with it to anyone. It's the Tarot of Transformation, and the reason is this book. The book is really good, actually, and I used this deck so far only once. It was last year in October. I found some kind of tarot challenge which was devoted to shadow work, and I did this challenge with this deck, and this book was very essential for this kind of job, because this book has really good descriptions of the arcana. For instance, death, grieving and letting go. You see how much information you get. And actually, if you think about these images, which are very ethereal and very, I don't know, very kind of, I don't know, spiritual kind of images, you don't expect that the explanation of the meanings for the cards will be very practical and comprehensive and down to earth. But that's actually what they are. They make this deck a very comprehensive tool, in particular for shadow work, no matter how non-shadowy these images may look. But these images possess a ton of meaning, and simply because when I was making this challenge for myself and I had to delve deep into the meanings of every card, I just don't think that practically I will be able to perform the same type of work for others, because first of all, I don't know this deck that well. I mean, I had to sit, I had to read, I have to think about every meaning of the card, and that actually took a lot of time. It turned out to be very helpful practice for me, but it will be just practically very difficult for me to perform for someone else, because it will require a lot of time and effort, which I do not have simply. So just for this reason, I wouldn't read for other people with this deck until I learn it enough. At the moment, I didn't learn it enough, and I bought it a long time ago. I bought it, I think, in 2019, and when I bought it, I knew that it's gonna be a very like future project project for the future, because at the time I didn't feel very confident learning such unique decks. I mean, so much different from your traditional Waite-Smith. Wrath, a deck that you're angry at. And this is the Lunasol Tarot. And actually the only problem I have with this deck is the way it was produced, the second edition. I had the first edition of this deck. The first edition had completely different cardstock, which was thinner, but it wasn't still very good cardstock. It started to wear out so fast because the cardstock wasn't like durable. After 5 or 10 times shuffling the deck, it started to show the signs of wear, and pretty soon it started to look as if I was owning it like for a year or two, although it was just like 2 months. And the cardstock, although it was much thinner and much easier to handle, it really made me upset. And when I heard that the second edition is coming and that the cardstock will be different, I sold my first edition and I patiently waited, and I got the second edition, and I completely hate the cardstock of the second edition as well, because it's okay, it's hard, it's very thick, but it's like, it's almost impossible to I can shuffle it, but it's painful, you know. It's very hard to deal with this deck. And I really love, I don't like this thick cardstock. I wish it was thinner. So actually now I think maybe I should have kept the first edition. And I like this deck, although it's completely not my art style. I don't like decks of this art style, but this is the only exception, which I really like. I used to do a lot of spreads with this deck, from very deep ones to mundane ones, and I really like the way it answered my questions. It was very easy to understand, and work-wise I have no complaints about this deck. But you see, now it looks like almost untouched because I don't really use it because of the hard cardstock. I cannot just make myself use this deck, and that's why I'm so angry, because I know that she's amazing. And I'm angry actually not so much at the deck, I'm angry at myself, let's be true. Envy, a deck you wanted because other people have it. Well, I don't have that many decks in this category, because I had like maybe 5 or 6 decks that I bought because other people had them, but I sold them all. And long ago I learned this lesson, that you don't buy things that other people like if you don't like it. So if many people have one deck, it doesn't automatically mean that I'm gonna like this deck. So this rule doesn't, or this kind of rule, buying something popular, doesn't work with me anymore. But the only deck that I kept from this category and which I really like is the Green Witch Tarot. I have this old Llewellyn edition with this kind of interesting, like plasticky cardstock. I don't know, it's like the best quality Llewellyn deck that I have. I heard that further on they changed the cardstock and now it's like this regular glossy, plasticky, whatever it is, like Forest of Enchantment or the Darkwood. They have similar cardstock. But this one is different and I really like it. I really like the mood of this deck. It's very soft, it's very comfy, cozy. It's like, you know, a cup of hot chocolate on a cold, rainy fall day. It's very soothing and very comfortable. I love the atmosphere that this deck gives me. I heard that many people compare it with the Everyday Witch Tarot, which I do not have. For me, they are not exactly the same. They probably have similar vibe, but for some reason Everyday Witch never really attracted me. But with the Green Witch, I don't know, it feels a bit more, I don't know, maybe close to nature. Maybe because Everyday Witch has a lot of depictions of various activities that are taking place indoors. Although here there are many indoor scenes as well. But for some reason this deck feels like, I don't know, like a village, you know. It's like a village in the woods, like a small eco settlement, something like that. That's the feeling I get from this deck. It's very nice. It's my dear friend. Last, a deck you like for aesthetic reasons. Let's be true. These are all my decks. If I don't like a deck for aesthetic reasons, I'm not gonna have it. But there was a deck, here it is, which I was buying initially simply for aesthetic reasons, and I was even prepared that I may never understand this deck, but I was buying it simply as an aesthetic object, as the object, like a piece of art. And actually this is the latest edition. I used to have the other edition with the green borders, but I do love, which I trimmed because I didn't like those, not green, gray borders, and I had them trimmed because I didn't like those gray borders. But I got this deck instead, and I really love this dark wine borders, despite the fact that if you pay attention, they are all having a bit different shades. They're not very consistent with the color. I hope you can see that they're different. So the quality of this dark red is not really there, but I don't mind. I really like this deck, and it's actually much more clear to me than I expected, and I managed to work with this deck. I was even making my daily pulls with this deck, and what actually helped me a lot was this little white booklet. It's really great. I heard from many people that it's like one of the best little white booklets ever made, and I have to agree with this. Although these explanations are rather poetic than practical, but still they give a ton of meaning, extra layers of meaning to whatever you already know from, for instance, Wade Smith. Because with, okay, only the major arcana, they have some kind of poems, and then all the rest is in prose. But this is a very beautiful type of prose. It's like, you know, it's like poetry but without rhymes. So I still like all those depictions. I like to use this deck for contemplative spreads, for spreads that involve some maybe philosophical conclusions or something like that, because just the way it's done, the way it's painted, it's perfect for that. And this is my favorite, one of my favorite Queen of Swords in all of my decks. Mother of Feathers, because feathers here are swords. So yeah, this was the deck that I was prepared to sacrifice it as a divination tool and just to have it as a piece of art, but actually this deck was very generous and it allowed me to comprehend itself and work with it. Gluttony, a deck you really didn't need but purchased anyway. Let's be true, this is the majority of the decks that I possess, because if we talk about need, there is need only maybe for, I don't know, in one like classic Waite-Smith and maybe one Sloth deck and maybe one Marseille deck. That's the need. All the rest is not really need, but it just want. And for me, one of the decks like this was the Ethereal Visions Luna Tarot. I didn't need this deck at all because I have Ethereal Visions classic version, the one with gold foil. I have Ethereal Visions Luna Indie edition, and for me, living in Europe, getting it from US was quite a hassle because they were not shipping it to most European countries, and it was quite a complicated procedure for me trying to find somebody who will buy it for me and send it to me, because I live in the EU, and yeah, I had to pay extra tax to get that indie version as well. And still, as soon as this mass market version was released, I also got it. I don't use it, as you may see, it's kind of virgin. I also have all the cards in order, and this time, unlike with True Black Tarot, it's because I haven't really used this deck, not a single time. But I love the art of Matt Hughes. I adore his style. I think his style is like the best reinterpretation of Alphonsus Mucha's style, which currently exists in the tarot world. And I have other decks by Matt Hughes, his oracles, again indie and the mass market version. And even if I don't use those oracles, and I hardly use them, to tell you the truth, because first of all, I don't like that they have only 32 cards, and second, because the meanings of those images are not the most comprehensive in my opinion. But still, I'm buying these decks because for me his art is just amazing. I love his art, his depictions, and I actually didn't mind the saturation of the color that was in the initial Ethereal Visions version. A lot of people were complaining that the images were not saturated enough. For me, that was just perfect and totally corresponded to the name of this deck. But I also like this version as much. So far, whatever Matt Hughes was doing, I mean, aesthetically, I appreciated it all. And the last prompt is Sloth, a deck you use when you feel lazy. Well, one of the decks that I use when I feel lazy, because there are a few, would be Dreaming Away Tarot. I've been having this deck for over 5 years now. It was one of the first decks that I got. I actually got her together with the Waite-Smith deck. It was my first order that I was making on Book Depository at the time. Now Book Depository is shut down, doesn't work anymore, but I remember my first order consisted of Waite-Smith, Dreaming Away, and Llewellyn Tarot, which is also one of the decks I use when I feel lazy. But as I had to choose only one, I decided to get this one. It's a sweet deck with this nice illustrations by Korean artist Kwon Shina, where all the characters look a little bit sad, and at the same time they all look very stylish. So it's a deck of sweet sad faces, and interesting, stylish clothes and outfits. And yeah, it has its own vibe, but although most of the faces, they look kind of upset, this is the deck that makes me smile. I like those faces that don't make me feel sad at the same time. I don't know, this art is very uplifting in my opinion, no matter how sad those faces look. So this is one of my all-time favorite decks. I like it. I've been loving it for a long time now, and I feel like our relationship will keep going into the future. So these were all my prompts. I hope you liked this video, and see you next time. Thank you all.